Happy days.
Yes.
Hello.
How are you guys?
So good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Well, if you ate my food,
I
you
was going to
see.
say, oh, it, I appreciate it.
Hey. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'd like to thank you very much, Mayor Basil Stewart and Councillor Kerry Adams for allowing me to take the city flag on a trip around the world. And when I complete the circumnavigation, I'm looking forward to coming back and sharing the experiences and the flag, bringing the flag back safely too.
Here's a good luck pin too.
Thank you so much.
City of Summerside pin. We'll even put it on for you.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
But make sure you post all your pictures.
Oh, I will.
Very important.
I will. Yes.
We will give you some extra pins to take with you.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
At CBC Charlottetown Studios, just waiting to meet Louise Martin of CBC's evening news program, Compass.
So I read a little intro and then you're up.
About PEI's Intrepid Traveler?
That's you.
Intrepid Traveler.
Yeah, I like that. It sounded kind
That
of
is
cool.
good.
Right?
Who writes this?
I wrote
That's good.
that. All right. Okay. PEI's Intrepid Traveler is taking a little break from his sailing adventures. In fact, Alan Mulholland is back home here on PEI. Today he was presented with the flag of Summerside to take with him on the next leg of his solo sail around the world. And he made some time to come and chat with us. Good to see you in the flesh.
Good to see you too, Louise.
So you've traded the 26-foot sailboat Wave Rover for some dry land for a couple of weeks?
For a couple of weeks, and I'm getting a really nice sleep while I'm here too.
Not so rocky.
No.
So where is Wave Rover now, and when do you begin the next leg of the journey?
So Wave Rover is in Lanzarote, which is an island, an eastern island of the Canary Islands. It's about 150 miles off the coast of North Africa. And then when I get back, I'll probably spend about 10 days and be underway again by December 20th on a 4,000-mile journey across the Atlantic yet again, but also all the way to Panama. So that's maybe somewhere between 40 and 55 days, all depending on the weather.
That's a big part of the journey.
That's the biggest trip yet
Yeah.
for Wave Rover
Wow.
and me.
So you came back to avoid the end of hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin to get the flag of Summerside
Yes.
and to get a sail made by your wife.
Exactly, yeah. And the priorities were, well, it's hard to say, but the sail is absolutely necessary for the safety of the boat.
So Glenda's with you the whole journey.
Yes, yeah. And we actually had a damaged sail on the first leg of the trip. So even though the repair has been made, it's probably not adequate for all the thousands of miles yet to go.
So what has been the biggest surprise for you so far in this journey?
When I initially left on this trip, the boat was just a vessel to get from A to B, and now I think I've bonded with the boat. Like I care greatly about it, and I want to make sure that everything goes well. Also, I have so much confidence in the boat at this point.
Yeah.
At first, I called it a shakedown cruise, to get across. Everything's working great, and I have a lot of confidence that this entire voyage is going to unravel as we all hope.
Scariest moment?
Scariest moment? Probably on this last voyage, on this last passage. It was about 3 days before I arrived at my destination, and we were in a gale, and a rogue wave hit us. I was asleep in my bunk. The boat rolled about 30 degrees, and the hatch opened, and water came flooding into the cabin.
Wow.
And I was awoken by cold water landing
Seawater
on
in your face.
seawater.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, at that time of night where it came
Yeah.
from. So I had to deal with that, and that was a moment of terror, thinking that
Right.
the boat is sinking, but it wasn't.
But it wasn't. And you have to, I guess, remain calm is one of the biggest.
First of all, it's dark, and I have to find where the water was coming from.
Yeah.
It took me a while to realize where it came from, And then when I pumped it, that's another funny story, halfway through the pumping, the pump came apart. So I had to find the tools to repair the pump to get the water out of the boat.
Most of us can't do that at dry land in the day. Most rewarding moment, I mean, I know I've seen some of the sunsets that you've put videos on, but the dolphins must have been a magical moment.
The dolphins. And the fact that they all came to the boat, and they were with me for an entire 24 hours. Like from sunrise when I noticed them, they were right there until sunset and the next morning.
So they bonded with Wave Rover as well.
They love Wave Rover. Yeah.
What is your expected completion date? So what's the goal now? And maybe some of the biggest hurdles that you might face in the rest of your journey?
So one of the biggest hurdles is getting through the Panama Canal.
Right.
And it's because of the regulations. So I have to have 6 people on board, 4 line handlers, just as though I were a big ship, a pilot, and also myself. We don't have room on Wave Rover for 6 people, so they'll have to be small people to fit on the boat.
So what are you going to do?
It's part of the rules, so we'll have to adapt. And then the next big hurdle for me is getting to South Africa in time. It's a really tricky area to get around the Cape of Good Hope and to safely get around it, so you have to nail the timing as best you can. So I'm in a real rush to get there by basically January of next year.
All right. And
January of 2021.
Okay, January, and then hopefully back by July 2021 to Summerside.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing. We'll catch up with you along the way. Thanks for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yep, we're good to go. Here we go, Alan. Well, it was in late July that Summerside's Alan Mulholland began his adventure. He set out to sail his 8-meter boat, Wave Rover, around the world. Well, that adventure continues for Alan, but he has taken a brief rest at home here on PEI, and he joins us now in the Main Street studio. Good afternoon, Alan.
Good afternoon, Matt. Good to be here.
So nice to see you in person. Have you found your land legs yet?
They're coming back to me. Yeah.
What has that been like, though? That must be quite a transition from where you've been to where you are right now.
Well, the bunk on Wave Rover is only about 18 inches wide. It's not very big. So the first thing I'm really thankful about is sleeping in a proper bed again. I am getting the best sleep in a long time.
And I'm thinking you haven't worn a lot of shoes and socks like you are today.
That's the other thing. My feet have been free in sandals for the last 4 months. So I've been enjoying that.
4 months, and I want you to take us through that adventure, but part of the reason you're back home is something that happened today. You received a gift from the city of Summerside. What was this?
I did. The city of Summerside, my counselor, Carrie Adams, arranged this, and it's a flag, a city of Summerside flag, and it was presented by the mayor, and it's now going to be sailing around the world with me on Wave Rover. And then on my return, I'm hoping to take that flag plus a few other items around to the local schools to help explain the voyage of Wave Rover, and maybe this is a tactile symbol of that voyage.
What will that mean to you to take that piece of Summerside around the world?
I'll be proud as you can believe. I mean, everybody I speak to, I tell them about Prince Edward Island, which they're not actually sure where it is, but to have a flag really helps put that in perspective. So I think as Canadians we're very proud when we travel of being Canadian, and even more so if we're from PEI.
Your wife Glenda is here with you today. What was it like to come back home and see her?
It's just, you know, that cliche, distance makes the heart grow fonder. It's so true. You know, when you get back and you come through those doors at the airport and you see your wife, you just, you know, want to run up there and hug and a kiss.
And Glenda has also made you something special that you're taking back with you.
So Glenda's been working on a new sail, a new jib for the boat, and it's probably 75% complete at this point. We have a little more work to do to it, but that'll be going back with me to Wave Rover. And if some of the listeners have been following along, the jib that I took originally was damaged on the first passage about mid-Atlantic, and I repaired it at sea, and the repair is holding, but it just won't be strong enough to make it all the way around the world. So this new jib is custom made for Wave Rover.
Overall, how is Wave Rover doing?
She's a tough boat, and everywhere I go, people marvel at the size because I'm always the smallest boat in the marinas, and she's an old-fashioned boat. And I think a lot of people, they look back on it and they say, "Wow, that's cool. That's how boats used to be." Because now they're all very big and shiny and fancy, but Wave Rover has a certain cachet about it.
And has been tested over these past 4 months. What have been some of the biggest tests for you?
So the wind, high winds, and the high winds themselves, you can generally put a sail configuration up to deal with that, but then you get gusts on top of these high winds, and those gusts, they can happen anytime. You can be sleeping, you can be up on deck, so you have to be aware of that. You get a certain amount of cross seas. Now those are something that can come out of nowhere. So you have the seas going with the boat, you're anticipating that direction, but I always am tied into the boat, and whenever I unclip from the boat, I always check over my shoulder to make sure one of those rogue waves isn't coming down, because that's the type of thing that takes you off the boat.
Oh, I know the last time Island Morning spoke with you was during the hurricane. What have been the scariest moments for you on this trip so far, Alan?
Well, the hurricane was interesting, and I was worried more for the boat than myself because I was in a harbor at that time and I knew I had good services there. But if the boat was damaged, if Wave Rover was damaged, I was really worried that would have been the end of the trip. And but luckily, she survived, no problem. And the other scary moment just happened about 10 days ago. It was about 2 days before I arrived in the Canary Islands, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was asleep in the bunk, and I had the storm anchor out, so I had no sail up. The conditions were too rough for sailing. And then, bang, and then I felt a huge amount of water rush in and land on top of me. It was cold seawater. And it was 2 in the morning, like I said, and I was asleep. And so I had to figure out where did that water come from immediately. And so I was checking, because it was a loud bang. It was a rogue wave that hit the boat. Checked the portholes, they were all intact. What happened was the boat heeled over about 30 degrees, and the force of a breaking wave on top of the boat opened the hatch enough that water flooded into the cabin and landed on top of me because I was on the low side. Yeah. So that was a worry. Like if you wake up and feel water, that's about as bad as it gets, I think, on a sailboat.
But it was okay.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. It was about 100 liters of water. Most of it landed on me, my sleeping bag, my warm clothes, and after I realized that I closed the hatch properly, and I started pumping the boat, and I got about half the boat pumped out when the pump failed. The handle came off of the pump, so it's now, like I said, very early, and I have a little headlamp on my head trying to find my tools to pull the pump apart to fix it, which only took 15 minutes or so, but it was a lot happening very early in the morning.
Have there been times over the past 4 months when you've gone, why am I doing this?
No, that hasn't entered my head at all. I mean, even during the most challenging of conditions, the whole idea was, I knew this would happen sooner or later, that you would be challenged, and there will be more challenges, but that's all part of the adventure. And no one is making me do this trip. I'm doing this trip as a personal challenge, and so I'm prepared for, I'd like to think I'm ready for those challenges.
Well, and the juxtaposition of those challenges and those more demanding times are some of the images that you've been sharing on Facebook of, sunrise, sunset, dolphins. What have been some of the most magical scenes that you've been able to see?
The dolphins are wonderful. To see a dolphin, and the fact that they love the boat, they come up and swim to the boat, makes you feel really special. You're alone out there all by yourself, and there's no other boats as far as you can see, but the dolphins find you and swim to you. Also, when that pod of whales went by, and they were like massive whales, people seem to have agreed now that they were fin whales, and they're a very large whale, and it was a large pod of them, and they swam up around the boat, and that one, I just happened to have the camera just as it surfaced right beside the boat. That was a terrific feeling. And people have asked me if I felt scared during that time. And to be honest, that was the farthest thing from my mind. I just felt really blessed that I was in the middle of this pod of whales. And they just seem so gentle. They know what they're doing. You know, they come up so gracefully, right beside the boat. I mean, they could easily flick the boat with their tail, but I don't think they have that in them. You know, nobody was challenging them. It was, as far as I could tell, totally non-aggressive.
So home on land, wearing shoes and socks for a few more days, Alan, and then setting out for the next part. Where do you go from here?
So from here, it's back to Wave Rover. I have about 10 days of changes I need to make it with some of the parts that I'm picking up here from Canada.
And Wave Rover right now is where?
It's in the Canaries,
right.
And the Canaries are an archipelago of islands, yep. And I'm on the easternmost island, an island called Lanzarote. And so I'll be leaving that island around December 20th, and I'll be heading on a southerly course until I get down to where the trade winds start, and I can't guarantee where that is. It's, you know, it's weather dependent. And as soon as I catch those northeast trade winds, I'll take them right across to Panama. All the way to Panama, and that's about 4,000 nautical miles, and on average I do about 75 miles a day, so
okay.
That's about 50 odd days, 53 days. That's the longest trip yet, and it's quite a distance for a Wave Rover.
That's a big leg, and then when you get to Panama, some challenges there too.
Panama, it should be really interesting going through the Panama Canal. I mean, I've seen pictures of it, but you know, this will be an experience to really savor.
But some interesting rules around that.
There's interesting rules. You have to have 4 line handlers, each with 150 feet of line, and you have to have a pilot from the Panama Canal zone, and myself. So that's 6 people
crowded onto this boat.
On my little boat. I mean, and plus those 4 lines, you know, 150 feet times 4. We will be so low in the water with that amount of people and stuff on the boat.
Well, this has been a solo journey, but certainly Islanders following along. What's that been like for you, Alan, to have the back and forth and people commenting and just responding to what they're seeing?
So when I left the last port, the Port of Horta in the Azores, and I posted that I was leaving, and you have internet right out to about 10 miles, so I was able to send pictures of Wave Rover leaving. And then 2 days later, I was passing close enough to another island, and to my surprise, my phone started beeping. It was receiving signals. And so I realized that I had an internet connection then for another 10 hours as I passed that island. And during that 10 hours, there were so many well wishes from Islanders, you know, wishing me success and fair winds on this voyage. I hadn't seen those. Those would have been posted 2 days earlier. And it was really heartwarming to read those and to know, you know, that people cared. And it felt like a big family. I really felt, you know, I've said this a few times now, but blessed.
And there's a connection with a local school that's going to be traveling with you too.
That's right. So Summerside Intermediate School, we're doing a project with them where they're going to do some messages, and we'll roll those up and we'll put them in a bottle, and then I'll launch those bottles. I'm planning to do 4. So 2 will be in the northern hemisphere, 2 in the southern hemisphere. And so 1 in the North Atlantic, 1 in the South Atlantic, 1 in the North Pacific, 1 in the South Pacific. And we'll see, hopefully those will land on a beach somewhere. Someone will pick them up, read the message, and return, there will be a return address, and they can contact us. And we'll see, we'll know when we launched it, we'll know where we launched it. What we don't know is where it'll be received.
Well, I know this whole journey doesn't wrap up. It's July of 2021, right?
That's correct.
Planned. So we'll be checking in with you again, Alan.
Looking forward
for all
to
this.
it.
Really appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Speaking with Alan Mulholland here on Main Street. Great. Alan, you're great.
So here I am. I'm back in Prince Edward Island. I've left the Canaries for 2 weeks and I'm on vacation. So what do you do on vacation? Well, you make some extra spare parts for your steering gear just in case the wind takes the
vane and, you know, blows it into the sea. So I'm going to make just a couple of extra spares because I lost one because I wasn't hanging onto it tight enough on the North Atlantic crossing. So in this case, I've already pre-cut this 3/16 plywood to 11 inches in width, and I'm going to make it 22 inches long, which is a bit of a compromise from the previous ones. They were 28. I still have a few at 28, so I just want to see whether I'll experiment with this. So there, we've set the saw to 22 inches. Now I'm going to flash it up and just push this carefully through. There we go. We have 3 new vanes. We'll take those with us when we fly back to the Canaries, and use these for Wave Rover steering gear for the rest of her 2-year circumnavigation. Well, she actually only has 18 months left in the circumnavigation at this point. You can see my breath here. It's a little bit colder in Prince Edward Island in December than it is in the Canaries. So, thank you very much, Member of Parliament Bobby Morrissey, for presenting me with this flag, which it's a real honor to take this on Wave Rover for her trip. And I intend to bring this flag back safe and sound, and we'll use it to present for the schools in the area as we talk about geography and just the whole adventure of the voyage. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. And you make me, I'm envious of your journey around the globe, and that you set out here from Summerside in Prince Edward Island and in my riding, and I follow you. I follow you closely, as I'm sure a lot of Islanders do, and wish you every success and safe, and looking forward to you bringing it back.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Premier's hands are very warm, by the way.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you very
I really
much.
love what
Thank
you're
you.
doing. I love
Yeah.
the exposure you're giving PEI. It's great.
And I'm looking forward to being back in a year and a half and seeing you again.
Well,
And,
you're welcome here anytime. I'll you know that. So.
Okay. Get another
You were,
rocking chair.
well, you're one of the first person I went to see when this all started. Remember
Wow.
in Summerside? So
Yeah.
that was-
Oh yes, and it was at Evermore. And
That's right.
Evermore
Yeah.
is going to do a Wave Rover beer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was our first leadership.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And I introduced him.
Yeah, that was very first.
And I introduced him as a future premier. So.
There you go.
Said it first. Said it first.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's great.
And thank you guys for your work.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
It's super, and it's so much better than what I
Yeah,
grew.
too, yeah, appreciate it very much.
Well,
That's
it's just because we couldn't bend it. We don't have a bender, but...
Don't say anymore, it is perfect.
That's great, and here you go.
Well, thank you so much. I'll definitely be posing with this and this on the boat installed.
No problem,
Yeah.
no problem with you.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to that, yeah, anytime.
So here I am, I'm at Dennis Motors and I'm talking to the owner, Brian Dennis. Now Brian Dennis and I have known each other for a few years. I used to live in this area and I bought my motor here, my outboard motor. It's a 6-horse and it's great, you know, and I use that motor to get in and out of harbors. Now I'm on my way to Panama, and when I get to Panama, I'm going to need greater range than just that little 1 liter that I can put in the tank. So Brian is setting me up with a tank and the correct fittings for my engine. Also, one of the nice things about having a relationship with a good outboard dealer is if anything goes wrong with that engine when I'm wherever in the world, I can get on Facebook and I can get a hold of Brian. Brian can talk to his mechanics and help me troubleshoot any problems. So Brian, do you have any words of advice to give to
Just
anybody?
basically take care, run the high seas well.
Thank you very much.
That engine.
Thank you very much. Rolling. So I'm back in Canada on my 2-week vacation, so-called 2-week vacation, and for those of you who've been following along in the channel, you probably remember on the initial crossing of the North Atlantic, Wave Rover had some sail damage to her jib. So the time is right to replace the jib, and in this case, to be on budget, I've decided to get a sail kit, and that sail kit is almost complete now, and I just want to show you a couple of details before I finish up. So this is the tack over here, and it's completed now, and the leather has been put over top of some of the internal structure, and over on this side at the head you can see what that internal structure looks like before the leather goes on top. So this will be the jib that will be making the rest of the journey with Wave Rover. We're now looking at the clew of the sail. It's been sewn on. It's been hand sewn down the center of the webbing, and then we've used the speedy stitcher to sew each side of the webbing. The webbing, of course, is sewn right through the sail, and there's pieces of webbing on each side. The webbing, each piece of webbing is 20 inches long, so we're looking at 10 inches from here to the ring. And now the final stage will be to put a piece of leather, butterfly shape, that will be sewn onto the sail like that. Of course, when it's done, I'll take another picture and you'll see what the finished product looks like. So here we have the sail. It's as complete as it's going to be before I take it back to the Canaries. Everything's been done except the grommets put on and the hanks. And this piece hasn't been seen yet. And this is the clew. The webbing, you did see how I sewed it on, and now the leather patch has been put over to protect it. So we're all finished in that respect. And just take you up to the head. There we have it. All right, time to fold this sail up and put it in a suitcase. Here we are, we're leaving Prince Edward Island, heading back to the Canaries. Goodbye, Prince Edward Island. Next time I see you, I'll be coming back in Wave Rover. Join me again next week as Wave Rover prepares to head to sea yet again.